You're listening to another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, and I'm your host, Jason Swenk, where I believe that if you have the right systems in place, you're going to grow faster and easier. Now, on today's episode, I have Jenkins. He's the first three-peat guest. He was actually my first guest ever on the podcast, so I'll link to all those show notes. But today we talk about his progression over the past 3 years. He's been doing this agency thing for well over 14 years, I think, if I got it right. And he's going to talk about some key hires, from when to hire an HR manager or HR director, as well as when and how he brought in a president to help him run his agency more efficiently and better, and talk about kind of that role, as well as why your employees are your number one asset. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you check out this episode. Hey Sims, welcome back to the show.
Jason, thanks for having me. Good to talk to you again.
You are my first interview, and you are my first person to come back 3 times. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Congrats on the 3-year run. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been incredible. And, a big thanks to you for coming on the show twice before. We were kind of joking in the pre-show. We were joking about our backdrops have changed. And I'll put a link to our first 2 interviews, and literally, I remember the lighting was all dark and dreary, and I mean it literally I looked like a hostage. So for those that have not watched those episodes, tell us a little bit about you and your story and your agency.
Sure. So I started BrightWave almost 15 years ago, and BrightWave is a very focused agency based out of Atlanta, and we're focused on email, ECRM, and cross-channel. We are strong believers that email is the hub of all digital marketing, and we manage and advise big enterprise-level email programs for companies like Chick-fil-A, Panera Bread, CarMax, Mattress Firm, Mizuno. So, really complex, sophisticated, data-driven marketing programs. And I started BrightWave after running the CRM team at Cox's Interactive division, and they shut down that division actually not too long after 9/11. So I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I started the business because I had to. I had no other options, or the job market was terrible, and just kind of accidentally became an agency guy. So a lot's changed over that 14 years, but I did not have a business plan to start an email marketing digital agency 14, 15 years ago.
It's amazing how we just kind of fall into it. I mean, I always tell people my story. I did a website making fun of one of my friends, and people wanted to pay me money to do that. And that's how we got started. So how has life been for the past 3 years since you've been on the show?
It's been great. We've experienced a lot of growth, a lot of changes over the last couple of years in the email industry. BrightWave is, I think, more than doubled in size. We're in a great position leading our industry front. And, I think we've really doubled down on culture as a key part of really what makes BrightWave a great place to work, and BrightWave a great company to work with as well. So, a lot of learning pains along the road, but in a great position to, head down the road for the next 10 years.
That's great. And you've hired some key personnel, I think, that has made a difference. And one has been in HR. And I remember when we hired our HR, we were around the 50 mark. And I think when did you guys hire your HR person?
We were around the 25 person mark. So a little early by most standards, but it's been a great investment. And the person has proven to be a really key part of our team.
And if you could go back, would you hire them earlier than you did at the 25 mark? Or do you think you hired it at the right time?
I think we maybe 6 months, but I think we hired them at a key part. We were at a turning point of, how do we, position BrightWave as an employer. I think we've always done a great job as a email focused agency. Yeah. But there were just a lot of things that needed addressed, and we already ask a lot of our people, and it's not fair to have the office manager handle some of it and the chief client officer handling. We need to let people do their primary jobs and have somebody solely focused on employee engagement, employee retention, and making BrightWave one of the top workplaces.
Yeah, and I think so many people mess that up, right? They just go, and just like I think you did in the very beginning, I know I did, is we were all client focused rather than employee focused, and realizing that our employees are our number one asset, and making sure that they stick, right? Rather than having to train someone, or like if I could go back, I would hire them probably around the 15 mark, depending on your growth rate, right? Because if you think about when you get to that 15 mark, you're getting a ton of clients in, and you're always worried about like, how do I keep up? And what's my next account manager, my project manager? And then I personally was interviewing a ton of people, and it was a big time suck on what I could, what I should have been doing. And I'm sure you've probably experienced the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Our recruiting process was, certainly a lot tighter now, and having somebody where that's a significant part of their job has not only saved us, a lot of money when compared to recruiter fees, but it makes that whole process so much better of an experience for the person that you're trying to hire. And, that's something that a clunky interview process might mean that it's kind of clunky to actually work there. And so we've really paid a lot of attention to doing the little things and making sure that person, is we treat them like, the way we would for somebody that we want to work with on the client side. So we've gotten a lot better at those kind of things, and they matter. That's why.
That's awesome. And then you've also transitioned over the year of hiring a president as well. Right. And talk about that, and talk about the difference of really kind of in your eyes, what's the difference between a CEO? What's the difference between a president? And when would you suggest to the listeners, like, what's the point that you say, I need to bring someone in?
Sure. Well, yeah, the guy I hired as president is Raj Chowdhury, and he's been, a well-regarded digital and ad tech executive, and somebody that I've known for quite some time, served on the AIMA board. So a lot of it, I think, I'll get back to the when and the why. But what we focus on is really natural and complementary, and it's going to vary by company. But in our case, Raj is completely focused on internal. He has most of the delivery teams and creative and operations all reported into him, and I'm focused on external. I'm focused on corporate development, strategy, sales and marketing, and making sure BrightWave is positioned the right way to the outside world so that we can achieve all the things that we want to as a business, as well as setting where are we headed. And Raj's sweet spot is really all of the things that happen in an agency when you grow that usually break and cause mass chaos. He's been there, he's done it. Doesn't mean that it's easy to fix or that we can fix it, but he knows the potholes in the road, and again, so he's focused internally, I'm focused externally, and we're collaborating on a lot of the internal and external thing that one of us owns. But I think it's an easy dividing line for us as well as for our team to understand what's the difference between Raj and Sims. He's a natural leader, and he's got great agency experience. So I think it was a significant hire for our team, where typically that kind of role in some situations, it may be kind of scary. But Raj we had the good fortune of Raj was a consultant for a little bit, a few months to me. I hired him just to be a consultant for me as navigating as CEO of a growing agency, help me on these things. Became a little bit broader in terms of, hey, help the agency, help some of my leadership team. And then it was really more of an opportunistic thing of, I never set out to say, hey, I need a president. I did know that, a blind spot was operations, but, in some ways, Raj, like the HR, might have been seen as a overhire or some, a big gun that we weren't really ready for. But it was very much just a fantastic culture fit from a BrightWave standpoint, and probably equally as important as he and I, through 4 or 5 months of him as a consultant, we realized that we worked really well together. And the way that he solves problems is completely different to me. And we it was a natural fit, and a lot of our team that had exposure to Raj was like, hey, it would be really great if you worked here full time. And fortunately, I was one step ahead of him, and Raj and I were having conversations of what does it look like for you to work full time. So a lot of it was right place, right time, and again, I think from a culture standpoint, Raj is somebody that our business for the first 14 years very aligned with his values and what he's done and where we're headed. It's a great fit. So it's really I don't think there's a formula. I think any good founder knows their weak spots. So that was the biggest driver. We could have hired probably somebody that was strictly an operational mind, but Raj has experience in everything from mergers and acquisitions to how do you scale a creative team to over 100 people. There's no one I don't think in the Atlanta market that has that kind of experience. Plus is the kind of guy that can roll up his sleeves and have fun with the team, really work late in terms of brainstorming on innovative ideas, and he's just been a phenomenal asset to our entire company, and so it's definitely been one of those milestone decisions that could potentially drag the company if it doesn't work out or cause conflict, but it's been nothing but positive, and it's certainly led us to a path of faster growth. I have a lot more confidence in making decisions or taking on particular clients that have we done exactly what they're looking for? Maybe not, but I know that a guy like Raj is going to know how to staff it properly, and it just having that person gives me an additional layer of confidence, which is any entrepreneur knows that it's lonely sometimes. So it's been really great on that front for me.
Oh yeah, well, especially since you've built this business by yourself and you never brought in any partners. You can't really bounce ideas off of other people, and having his experience and expertise, right, makes a big difference. And we've had him on the show, and he's done an amazing job in the past. And when I saw him joining with you guys, I was like, yeah, that was the right hire to really kind of catapult you. And just like you said, it's all about figuring out what are you good at and what are you weak at, and then bringing those people in, because when you get to certain levels, you can't do everything yourself, and you need to figure out all right, well, we have this vision to going to this part, and what are the different pieces that we need on the chessboard in order to allow us to get there. Would you like to grow your agency 3 times faster? Would you like to work directly with me, where you can ask me questions and I can give you the answers that you need so you can grow your agency faster? If so, I want to tell you about the Agency University. We're getting ready to open enrollment again, and you have to request an invite if you go to agency.university. Now, Agency University is an innovative mentorship where you get to work directly with me, and we send you the resources and support you need in order to grow your agency. So if you want to know more, go to agency.university. How important do you think it is with having a vision of where you're actually going and communicating that to your team? How often, what's the main role of being the CEO that you play now? What do you have your hands in?
Well, I think the main role is a couple of things. One of the most important thing is really setting that strategic vision of where we're going as a company and being able to articulate it. Now, that's frankly harder than it should be. There's a lot of people that could care less of what's the 10-year plan, what's the North Star, but being able to really connect that to people that maybe aren't looking for that is challenging, and we don't want people to lose sight of just in the weeds. In an agency, you can focus just on what do I have to get done today, not even thinking about what are we trying to do this quarter. So the vision can often be really challenging. In fact, Raj and I were talking about early this morning. We have one of our monthly agency-wide meeting next week, and I'm going to be going over once again our vision, values, mission, our 2017 goals, because we haven't talked about them for a couple months. We want to keep that front and center to a certain degree. We don't want to distract people, but it's important to know what do we stand for, what are we trying to do in the short and long term. But it's hard to get that through to everyone. So I think that's a really important part of my role. I think secondly, making sure that the team has all the resources to do it. Raj and I are focused a lot of our time on, what are the additional positions and skill sets and teams. Maybe even we've added, a technology team in the last year that's new. So we're not opposed to, blowing things up or adding new teams. So we've got an incredibly talented team. We've got to make sure that they have the right resources to do what they need to do for our clients. And then lastly is the financial piece. You can have the greatest vision, you can have a culture that's phenomenal, but if you run out of money, guess what? All that means nothing. So the financial piece, making sure that we're able to achieve our goals and that we're in a position that allows us to not only be stable, but be a great, in our case, growing company. So that's something I certainly don't take lightly and get a lot of help from. But I think any CEO has to be able to have, financial command of where they are and where they're headed and what may be lurking below.
Yeah, that's great. Well, is there anything I did not ask you that you think the listeners need to know in order to kind of grow their agency a little bit faster and easier?
Well, I think asking for help it's hard. I mean, I certainly haven't had a formal board of advisors or even a board of directors. I've figured a lot of things out on the road and made a lot of mistakes. And after 14 years, I've viewed myself as pretty good at this. But yet I knew that there were a lot of things that we could do better. There were a lot of things that I had no idea of what were around the corner, despite having a clear vision of where I wanted to go, but I didn't necessarily know how to do it or how to do it well. So one of the best decisions, and I think a lot of people have certainly noticed it at BrightWave too, that there's plenty of people from a control or ego standpoint that they don't need help. They don't want to ask for help. They can figure it out. They don't want it to be perceived as a sign of weakness. And I view it as the Golden State didn't need to add Kevin Durant. But they did, and they're even better this year. And no team or competitor ever wants to not have great talent, and even whether it's quote unquote needed or not. So I think not being afraid to ask for help and take some risk. If there's a chemistry fit, that to me is the most important. It's easy to find somebody good, from a paper standpoint that would be a great executive addition to your team, but you got to have the chemistry fit, and you got to really have that gut check of, all right, this person is going to be right there in the trenches with me. They're going to have access in most cases to, everything that's going on with the company, from financials to where the bodies are buried. So, you really have to have a trust level and be able to enjoy that person, of taking it to the next level. So if you don't have that, I think you should wait. You don't want to do a bad hire at a high level. It can be disruptive to the CEO role and incredibly disruptive to the troops, because they're going to feel naturally a little bit potentially threatened, or just kind of like, hey, new person, what does that mean for me? So you got to make sure that it's right. So I think in hindsight, the consulting and having Raj spending a lot of time with people, there was a great comfort level and a very easy transition. But that, again, that just happened as opposed to being well orchestrated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the great things happen when you put the pieces and line them up, and then you just connect the dots after. And I like the approach that you had with, bringing Raj in as a consultant first and working with the team. So it wasn't like, all right, guys, we brought in this superstar doing this, and he's going to change everything. And then everybody's like, and just freaking out. So it was a very smart move, and that's why you guys have been around for a while and having the success you guys have. So I wish you guys the best of luck. Now, you've written a couple books that probably everybody needs to check out. We'll put them in the show notes, but what are they again for the ones that are just listening?
Yeah, the Truth About Email Marketing and the New Inbox. The Truth About Email Marketing is a great primer, 101. I wrote it 8 years ago, and I think it's still pretty accurate, and provides a nice overview of email fundamentals. And then the New Inbox is really how does email fit in a world that's dominated by social and mobile, and thankfully, I think most marketers have stopped trying to kill email and realized, oh, it's one of the best tools in my belt. We've got to we got to make it work with all these other emerging tools. And that book was published a few years ago, and still hear a lot of comments about people finding that beneficial. So awesome. Hopefully they're still relevant to your listeners.
Oh, I'm sure they're relevant. You do great work. And for all the listeners, if you like this, make sure you comment below. And if you don't want to miss out on any of these amazing interviews that we're doing, make sure you go to swenk.it. Yes, swenk.it. And you won't ever miss out on any of these episodes. And Sims, thanks very much. And all of you listeners out there, make sure you take action, because action leads to transactions. And make sure you take one thing away from what Sims just went over. And I guarantee you your agency will be in a better place.